This video is embarrassingly late. I thought that I should just not upload it or film it at all just because it's so late, but I decided I was just going to do it because I wanted to. I was going to film it at like a more normal time, like end of December, early January, but I've been dealing with a lot of health crap, so that didn't happen, and it kept not happening, and here we are. It's right now, as I'm filming this video, it's the middle of February, a little over the middle of February, and the video is still not completely filmed and uploaded, so we're just gonna try it now. So today, I got on my sloppy giant Epica t-shirt. My hair is awkward in every single way. This length is awkward, the bang length is awkward because I'm growing them out, so everything's a mess. And I'm me, so I'm awkward. So everything about this is awkward, but we're gonna do it anyway. And whatever, it's fine. So today we're gonna count down my favorite books of 2022, finally. And yeah, let's just do it. Let's just not even dilly-dally. Let's get into it. So I have 2 honorable mentions for this year, and I feel like the fact that these are just honorable mentions and not like top 3 might cause drama, so I'm sorry if this offends you that they're just honorable mentions. But my first honorable mention is Circe by Madeline Miller. I really did not expect to like this book as much as I did. I wrapped it up at some point during the year, and one thing I talked about is how for a lot of the book, I really didn't think that it was my thing, because I don't normally really get into mythology, and mythology tends to be very episodic, like this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and it tends to make me feel like we're not going anywhere. But that ending of Circe hit, and it was just so good, and I loved it so much, and it made me cry because I was so happy, and that's great. So Circe, if you don't know how you wouldn't know at this point because it's literally a word, but if you don't understand, Circe is about the mythological character Circe. She's only in the Odyssey for like 2 seconds, and so here she gets her own story, and she is a witch, and she is kind of trying to hone in her craft while she is exiled, and she meets a lot of these humans that have a lot of meaning in her heart, and it's about her struggle with her immortality, her divinity, and who she is. Yeah, it's kind of like her self-discovery. It's about her kind of finding what she wants for her life. It's beautifully written. But yeah, it's good stuff. I feel like there's nothing else I can say about it that isn't already said a million times. The reason why for me it's like honorable mention material is because, like I said, it wasn't like I enjoyed it 100% full speed beginning to end, because I didn't. It gets pretty slow, and you have to be patient with that, because I think the ending is worth it. I think that if I overall was the type of person that was like, yay, mythology all the time, then this whole thing from beginning to end would have been perfect for me. So for me, it was more of a 4.5 out of 5, but I did really, really love it. I think it's a great book. My next honorable mention is one I've not talked about on the channel yet. It's called Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Coe Strong Washburn. I think that's how you say his name. This one was one of my most anticipated books to read. Noelle Gallagher on her channel talked about it pretty extensively and how much she loved it. And based off the way that she described it, I figured that I would love it as well. It takes place in Hawaii, which is a gorgeous setting. And you have this kid in this family. And this happens, like, I believe in the first chapter. It's not a spoiler. This is how Noelle explained it. It's in the general synopsis for when you pick it up. This kid has always been super in touch with nature, and his family has always kind of noticed this, and this really comes to a head at the beginning of the book when he is like, to make a long story short, or a long chapter short, he's like in the ocean and he's going to drown, but then a shark grabs him in his jaws, delivers him back to the family, and then the shark swims away. And that's nuts, obviously. So from that moment on, the family starts to really realize how different he is. And you get multiple perspectives from different members of the family's point of view. You get the mom, you get the dad, you get the siblings, because he has 2 siblings, and you get his point of view, the child that's very connected with like nature and such. And I thought that was really up my alley. I love the general concept. And overall, I think that the writing style was really, really beautiful, especially the chapters from the mom's point of view. I loved the writing. I feel like each character felt super vivid. Everyone had their own distinct voice. It felt worthwhile having the multiple points of view. I think that the only thing for me is I had such high expectations that I kind of built it up to be something that I would connect with even more in my head than in reality, because one thing that's really prominent in this book is sibling relationships. So what it's like to have a sibling that is supposed to be so talented, so gifted, so, otherworldly in this specific case. And I think that that's kind of where I thought it was very interesting, but like I couldn't connect with it as much personally because I don't have siblings, and I didn't. And I think that Noelle may have even talked about this, but I was just so enamored by the rest of the concept that I forgot. It is very focused on sibling relationships. I don't have any, there's nothing wrong with this book. It's just the only reason why I'm putting it as an honorable mention is because like I didn't vibe with it 100% the way that I wanted to. But it's a great book. It's got wonderful writing. Like I said, the plot is, I think, pretty well developed. It's one of those things where, it's magical realism. So even though there are supernatural elements to it, it kind of flows like a contemporary, and it has a lot of, themes and concepts that are, especially universal, I think, to a lot of people. So Sharks in the Time of Saviors was a really good piece of literature right there. So definitely recommend it. So now we are in my favorites. So out of honorable mentions, we are into my top, what is this, number 7. I have a top 7 this year. And so number 7 is Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente. I don't know how to say that person's name still. Oops. Comfort Me with Apples is super, super short. Like, I think it's only like 100 pages, quick novella. And I can't talk much about it without spoiling literally everything because it's so short and because not knowing is part of the fun. But it's about this girl, I believe her name is Sophie, and she lives in this estate where everything is perfect. Her life is perfect. And she has this like husband, but like you start to piece together pretty early on these little itty bitty nuggets that things are not as perfect as they seem. And she starts to kind of unravel, some secrets about her husband and about where they live. And then you as a reader start to put some things together. And it ends up being not what I expected at all. So what it means in the end, like, is just pretty brilliant. I thought it was a very interesting take on a common story. I'm not going to tell you what that common story is, but you will probably know it once you kind of continue reading, because it, like, they put it pretty much in your face at the end. A lot of people compare it to different things. I've compared this in my head to the movie Mother. Definitely not as graphic. I couldn't actually watch Mother. I was intrigued by the concept, so I just kind of looked up what it was about, and I think it's a great sounding film. It's just not something that I would personally want to watch and experience, but I think that Comfort Me with Apples is kind of a similar vibe to that. So hopefully that's not, in a way that almost sounds spoilery for me to even say, but it's also kind of not, because it's not the same. So You'll have to see. Just read the book. It's really quick. It's really good. It's written in a super engaging way. The style is so distinctive and perfect for the story. And yeah, I plowed right through it. I was sick with COVID when I read it, and I wanted just something quick and easy. And that was quick and easy, honestly. Kept me going. Loved it. Great book. Number 6 came out of the literal woodwork. I had never heard of this book. I'd never heard of the author, I don't think. But one of my coworkers read it and wanted to teach it. And so he was so excited about it that, of course, I had to read it to see if I wanted to teach it too. And I don't think that I can teach it because it makes me cry so much. But it's Orbiting Jupiter by Gary D. Schmid. No idea what this book was, but it's a young adult novel about this family that decides to foster a kid who's like 14 years old, and they already have a child. So they have like their 12-year-old son, and then they have this 14-year-old foster kid, and he clearly has been through it. He has a kid and he's only 14, and throughout the book you kind of learn more and more about him and, piecing together the things that he has been through. And it's written in such a quick and simple way, in every way, shape, and form. Because just at the sentence level, the writing is literally so simple. It's so easy to just absorb. And everything in it is just so well put and so well said. He has a short amount of space to kind of work with because of the way that he timed this out as an author and like the amount of time that he devoted and the amount of words that he devoted to the story. But I feel like everything is used super, super effectively. And yeah, it's so sad, and it about killed me. It like ruined my weekend, but it's so good too though. So I don't know if I'm going to teach it, but it's a great book. If you are looking for a good young adult book, or if you're looking for a tearjerker, I would say that Orbiting Jupiter is the way to go. Number 5, How to Keep House While Drowning by K.C. Davis. So this is my nonfiction, my first nonfiction on the list. There's going to be 2 nonfiction on this one. This one is kind of like my other ones on my favorites list. Really short. I feel like I've been really into short books because I feel like, honestly, in general, I feel like a lot of my favorite books are really, really big or really, really short. And I think it's just because, like, that shows me that the author took the time that was needed, even if it was, like, longer or shorter than average to tell that particular story or to talk about that particular topic in the case of nonfiction. So this book is about, well, kind of like what the title suggests. It's like you're overwhelmed with life, as we all are, and it feels really hard to keep up with simple, like, household chores when you feel like that. And so this book examines the different reasons why we feel so overwhelmed with housework in particular. And it talks about like different strategies to overcome those mental blocks and to survive through your household work. Because like you don't have to, the biggest takeaway that I got is that things do not need to be perfect. It needs to be functioning. And I think that was huge for me because I feel like a lot of the times, you know, the way that I clean and the way that I attack, you know, household work, it's like, oh, everything needs to be perfect. I need to do the entire house. But like, you don't actually need to do that. Like, you don't need your house to be spotless. You kind of just need it to function. You know, you need to have space to do stuff. You need it to not be gross. You know what I mean? So that's not perfection. That's functioning. That was a really big thing. I highlighted so many different quotes in this one. I think it's super worthwhile if you have any sort of mental... It's the heater. Can you hear the heater? How loud is the heater gonna be? I don't know. You're just gonna have to listen to the heater. Anyway, I think for any sort of mental block that you might have, I think that this book could be super beneficial to kind of breaking through, getting some ideas for how to optimize how your space functions and how you accomplish that, like how you get your space to function. If there's a particular area in your house that's super cluttered, just quick tips to like not make it look perfect all the time, but maybe just reorganize it in a way that like, okay, maybe you do technically have a stack of stuff there, but it's in a bin now. Like, you know, baby steps to help you get all that figured out, to undo those mental blocks, and to just kind of feel like your house is under control. I thought this was a really good book. I think a lot of people need to read it. So, number 4 is The Shining by Stephen King. I have an entire reading vlog already about this, and it's like half an hour long, so you can find all my thoughts on it there. But, I mean, it's number 4 on my favorites list, so I really, really liked it. I think that Stephen King writes the moments of terror in this story really well. I feel like if you think about the moments in themselves and what's literally happening, I feel like not every author could make it sound as scary as it was. And I feel like you do spend a lot of time with the characters, a lot of slow, you know, building of tension and establishing relationships through like every member of the family's point of view. But I feel like as long as you're able to get through that, I feel like all of those details are really necessary for you to feel like the weight of the ending and to feel the weight of Jack's descent into madness and how this affects his family. So I thought it was super fun. If you don't know what it's about, somehow, if you've never seen the movie, basically this family goes to look after this resort hotel in like the wintry mountains during the off season. And so they're very, very snowed in and secluded, and it's really easy to kind of go crazy when you are in that sort of environment, especially if you are someone, you know, like our lead character Jack, who struggled with like mental health and like alcoholism and such. So yeah, it's a good ride. It was a really fun book. I really enjoyed it. Number 3, I'm so excited to talk about this because I've not had a chance to talk about it on the channel yet at all, and it's Bunny by Mona Awad. And I know that some people really don't like this book, but y'all, I thought it was so good. I thought everything about it was amazing. I could not stop reading it. The only reason why I did have to stop reading it at certain points is because it was like end of December and I was like getting ready for the holidays and such, but it's literally so good. It's about this woman who is in a graduate fine arts program. She's a writer and she's here with, you know, all these other fine arts graduate yuppies, if you will. And it's a very fancy school, and there are these girls in her writing program that all call themselves the Bunnies. Like, they call each other Bunny, and they are grown women in a graduate program that are constantly talking to each other like, oh my gosh, Bunny, you are so pretty. Bunny, I love you so much. Oh my gosh, let's never be apart on vacation ever again, Bunny. Ah! Like, it's nuts. It's so cringe. And so this girl is trying to, you know, survive her graduate program, having to suffer along, you know, that. But she, like, kind of decides to be friends with them, or they kind of decide to be friends with her, and oh my, it is a trip from beginning to end. The group themselves are weird. Your main character, it's very difficult to understand what's real and what's not overall in this book. By the time I hit the end, I felt like my opinion on what was going on the whole time changed several times. And even though you do get some facts and information, it's really hard to tell how much of this book is supposed to be real versus how much of it is supposed to be a metaphor. So it's so strange. It's so bizarre. Every single chapter. And honestly, also kind of funny. Like, really funny. I was, like, laughing out loud because of how ridiculous a lot of it is. And it provides, like, a lot of satire into academia and fine arts programs. Because I feel like we've all been there. We've all been to, like, a writing critique in college where, I don't know, once in a while you get someone that submits something that is just really horrible, but you can't just say, wow, Tiffany, that sucked. So you end up saying something like, I want to hear more about the soup. If you read, you know, but that's what it's like. So yeah, I loved the satire. I loved the overall plot. I loved how friggin' weird and confusing it was. I thought it was amazing. So I think Mona Awad did a lovely job. I'm definitely interested in seeing her other work because I've never read anything of hers other than Bunny. So I'll have to see. I definitely want to reread it too because I'm not 100% sure if I know what happened. I'm not sure, like, what my theory is about, you know, what's a metaphor and what isn't. So I'm going to have to go back and reread it soon. So coming in at number 2, As I Knew Him, My Dad, Rod Serling by Anne Serling. This is my other nonfiction on the list. This was such a sweet read. So if you don't know who Rod Serling is, he is the host, creator, writer of The Twilight Zone. He's a really wonderful person. Like, if you don't know a whole lot about him, like, just read his Wikipedia page. There's a lot because he was a World War II vet. He earned a Purple Heart. He was just, I don't know, really had a lot of different interests in, you know, his writing and in his life. And it was really wholesome to read this book by his daughter, Anne, because it sounds like he was just a really great father. It sounded like they had a really great family. And even though he had a lot of PTSD from World War II, it definitely affected him. He definitely had the nightmares. He definitely leaned very heavily onto smoking, which ended up being his main downfall. He did die of heart attack or stroke, whichever. So it sounded like she had a really great childhood growing up, and it sounds like he was just a really wonderful person. And I think a lot of people, they see him on The Twilight Zone and Night Gallery, his other show, and they see this, like, super mysterious man, but, like, he wasn't really that mysterious in real life. Talks about all of his kind of writing ventures and his plans, and talks a lot about, you know, how he had to really fight with television networks because they really wanted to censor a lot of his work. He really wanted to make a lot more statements on social justice than he was able to because of the time. But yeah, it was a really great book. I loved her descriptions of her childhood. I feel like she made her memories feel real to me as someone that was not even alive at the same time. So I thought that was really powerful. I think her writing was really, really beautiful. I think that she didn't overdo certain things that she absolutely could have overdone. Like, she only shared with us, you know, samples of, you know, her father's letters that he was writing during, like, World War II, where she could have given us way too much information in certain spots. But I think that the way that she paced everything, what she decided to focus on was, like, just right. And then it also kind of gets into her own personal story and her grief and how she really, really struggled in her grief for her father. especially compared to, you know, looking at the other members of her family, it felt like everyone was moving on and she just couldn't. So it was so good. It made me cry, even though, like, I already knew, like, this is a real person. He's dead. I knew that. But, like, really hearing it in her words, I thought was really powerful, really good. Last but not least, my favorite book of 2022 has to be Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Has to be. As much as I really, really love my top 3 this year, Piranesi had to be number 1. I read this very early in the year. This was in my first wrap-up of 2022, and it's about this dude, Piranesi, who lives in the world, but the world is this very labyrinthine house. It's just this big, big house with these, like, statues, and its hallways and corridors are completely endless. Like, he is an explorer, and so he's trying to map out kind of what the entire space is like. And like I said, it's endless. Like, there's no way out. So he's just kind of mapping out the world. And so you have Piranesi, the main character, and then you have the other. And the other is, like, just another person. And you start to understand that there is somebody else in this labyrinth. And you're starting to understand Piranesi, innocent as he is, doesn't seem to understand what the other really is. And really neither do readers. It takes us a while, but we're always like a step or two ahead of him because he has such an innocent mentality. It's written in diary entries. The writing is gorgeous. The world is just unlike anything else. The best I could describe this book is if you mixed House of Leaves with The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Ocean is one of my favorite books of all time, and I loved the setting of House of Leaves. So this was great for me. I loved this book so much. The writing, like I said, is so gorgeous. And I feel like in the end, you have to kind of put the pieces together to figure out, you know, what it all means. I like books like that. And to me, I felt like this book is about how trauma changes us while we're going through it and after. So, very powerful book. Definitely recommend it. Very strange, very different. I love books like that are really weird and you're not 100% sure what's going on, because that motivates me to keep reading. So it had that element, and it came together so beautifully and so perfectly. So highly recommend it. I really loved all of these books, guys. I am happy that I finally sat down to talk about them. So that's great. And then one other book highlight from 2022, as I did read a little over 30 books this year, which was great. I did get to see a poem of mine published in the Ohio Poetry Day booklet, and I self-published my own book, The Poet's Tarot. So I do want to thank anyone that bought a copy, because that's, it really means the world, and I'm so happy that people have bought this thing and read it and liked it. So that's really crazy that I actually finally did this. So again, thank you. It's been really, really crazy. I hope that, I hope that people continue to run into it. I'm probably going to do a self-publishing wrap-up, so to speak, on my 1-year anniversary of its release. So I could just talk about different things I did to make sales and just getting real about how much I sold, because it's not a lot. Not a lot at all. But you know what? I expected to sell like 7, and I sold a lot more than 7. So I consider it a success. But yeah. Thanks for joining me on this incredibly late video. I don't know why anyone is still subscribed to me. But yeah. Hopefully I will see you sooner than like a month. Bye.